Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Hutchinson here, and today we're going to review the tensions in the state. And by the state, we're referring to the Mexican states. So let's kind of recap a little bit and go back to when Texas was under Spanish rule. At this time, there was a monarchy, and we know that a monarchy is when the authority is with a single figure, such as a king or a queen. And at this time, the King of Spain was Ferdinand VII. And then we moved into our exploration, talking about the conquistadors who were sent to the Americas and in search of God, religion, and social aspects, in search of gold, our economic gain, and also in search of glory, that political power. And just to kind of recap, we remember that we talked about. Okay, first we started off with Hernan Cortez and his defeat of the Aztec Empire in 1519. And then we moved into Pineda, okay, who we see that he mapped the Texas Gulf Coast as well in 1519. And that was just the journey that he took, and you can see his route right there. And then we also had Cabeza de Vaca, who we know that in 1528 he was the first to be able to write and report of his findings and what he explored during his time in the Texas region. And because of him, more conquistadors set out, okay, into the Americas. And so after that, we went into how the Spanish began to settle and they devised their system known as the mission system. And the entire purpose of the mission system was to convert the natives to Catholics, to keep other nations also from coming into the Spanish claimed territory, which is what they now were claiming. So we can see here a look at some of the missions here in San Antonio. Remember the influence that the Spanish had, such as culture, architecture, okay, and a lot of other things, foods as well. The language we can still see here today. So let's talk about Texas under Mexican rule. Texas under Mexican rule, they are a republic, and they were under the Constitution of 1824, and known as the United States of Mexico. And so the Mexican Constitution of 1824 was written after Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821. Okay, so in 1821, again, is when Mexico gained independence from Spain, and then they devised their constitution in 1824. The republic took the name of the United Mexican States, and it was defined as a federal republic with Catholicism as the official religion. And it was under a federalist style of government. And we're going to talk in a little bit about what a federalist style of government is. Okay, and we see that they created the state of Coahuila y Texas, which merged Texas and Coahuila. However, we're going to see that this is going to cause political tensions that are going to divide the region because there are not enough people in Texas for it to be on its own, which is why they combined it. Okay, and then we saw the influence of the impresario system. And we're that's what we have been studying recently with Moses Austin, Stephen F. Austin, Martin De Leon, and Green DeWitt. And then we also see that Erasmo Seguin, he was just a part of this time period with the impresario system, which encouraged United States immigration, and it also helped establish civil settlement. So let's talk about some of the similarities between Spanish rule and Mexican rule, or when Texas is under Spain versus when they're under Mexico. So we can see here in this image, the image to the top half of the flag is going to be our Spanish flag or our flag from Spain, and then the bottom right is going to be our Mexican flag. So they do have some similarities here, though. We see religion is the same as far as Catholicism, except Spain wanted to use it as a way to convert the natives and also the indigenous peoples. And then we see Mexico has claimed that Catholicism is their national religion. We see the similarity between Spanish still being used, food, and music as well for our culture. And so, as far as the Anglo majority, we're like I told you guys, we're going to see that there are going to be some tensions that are going to rise due to what's happening in Mexico and due to the type of government that they're holding. And so the Anglo majority wanted to keep their own customs. They established their own schools, started their own newspapers, and this kind of independence began to worry the Mexican government. So the Mexican Constitution of 1824, okay, it formed the state, like I stated earlier, of Coahuila y Tejas with Saltillo as the capital. And the capital, like I told you guys before, was far from Texas, okay? And it was hard for Texans at this time to be able to participate in the state government due to their location. So we're going to see that this provision gave the state strong local control, and local governments could adjust to meet the local needs, and particularly those of the U.S. settlers. The local government became a mixture of Mexican and U.S. practices. So what we see here is um, that we're going to see where all the power is being given to really shortly. So here's an example or a picture of what the Mexican Constitution kind of looked like from just the cover and things like that. And then we have that Roman Catholicism was the official religion or the Catholic faith. And settlers publicly claimed to be Catholic, but sometimes they privately worshiped as they pleased. And we can also make connections to the fact that we know here in America, we value ourselves on freedom of religion. So at this time, a lot of our Anglo settlers wanted to have that freedom as well. And then we see that there was a provision that restricted slavery. Okay, so this is all under the Mexican Constitution. And it angered a lot of the Texans or a lot of our Anglo settlers who believed that the Texas economy, and in particular, they used cotton farming, and they needed that slave labor to be able to continue that type of um, economy. And so this creates a division between the United States settlers, and the Mexican government. So federalism, I told you guys that we would get to this. So federalism, this image here displays what that is. So we see the national government on one side and the states on the other side. And this is where the distribution of power between the federal government and the state government is more balanced. We can see here that it's more equal. So if we had to give it like another image, we might possibly say that the state and the government, they're working together. Okay, the state and the nation. Okay, so that means that more people have a say so. More people are able to participate in the decisions that are being made. Okay, so Federalists versus the Centralists. So at this time, the Mexican president was Anastasio Bustamante, and he ignored the Constitution of 1824 by creating a strong national government. And at the time, the Mexican Constitution of 1824 said that they were a federalist government, meaning that there was that shared power between the nation and the states, like we saw shaking hands in the last picture. And under the Constitution of 1824, the states had local control, meaning that in their area, they could vote on certain things that would happen within that state. But President Bustamante took that power away, and citizens were extremely angry. And he ends up um, he ends up following what we call a centralist system or a central government, meaning that all of the power between the nation is within the center of the government, meaning that those of higher authority, such as himself, would make the decisions. So the state government only enforced the national laws and policies, and the national government establishes all the laws and all the policies, equaling they have all the power. So this is an example of what centralism looks like, which is what Bustamante came in and began to do in Mexico. Okay, so we see the government in the center. Okay, and we see all of the governing power is given to the national or the central government. So the state governments only enforce the national laws and policies, and the national government establishes all the laws and policies, and they have all of the power. Okay, so we can see how all those arrows are pointing into the center. So think centralism, the center, or just the government. So of course, those in Mexico want to see a change in power. And here we have Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, who was in the Mexican military. And he claimed that he was outraged. He was opposed by this centralist form of thinking. He did not think it was cool. He wanted to be that voice and was like, we need to change this back and follow our Constitution, which states that this is a federalist government. That's what it was written on. And in 1832, he launched a revolution against President Bustamante. And the support that he gained was huge. And he gained many of the support from the Texans in his revolution against Bustamante. And of course, one of our key figures is going to be Stephen F. Austin, because they did not like Mexico's strong central government. And so Stephen F. Austin helped convince the Texans to support Santa Anna's efforts to preserve the states' rights constitution. And we're going to see how this story ends up unfolding. Maybe you guys can think ahead and make some predictions about what's going to happen next.